Hello, I'm Sally Court, and I'm chatting to friend and local author Frank Burkett. Welcome, Frank.
Hello, Sally. Nice to have you.
Let me begin by giving you a brief background on Frank. He was born and raised in Queensland. For 3 years lived in the UK studying for a diploma of dramatic art, and spent a further 3 years in Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, working on land conservation. In 1990, he set up the thriving community newspaper, the Maryborough Herald. Frank also published a biography on country music singer Graham Connors. Now Frank is retired, lives here in Maryborough with his wife Pat and their Dalmatian dog. He has also made time to write his debut novel, View from the Clock Tower. Congratulations, Frank. That's such a wonderful publication.
Thank you, Sally.
I loved it. I have to tell you that I'm actually an avid bookworm, and I listen to 1 to 2 audiobooks per week. This is the first book I've actually sat down with to read.
Right.
And from cover to cover, it was a page turner.
Oh, thank you, Sally. Yeah.
Tell me, why did you choose the City Hall clock tower to be featured on the front cover?
Well, the clock tower to me is probably the most iconic thing in Maryborough. We've got some beautiful buildings, there's no doubt about it. Maryboro's built environment is just amazing. But the clock tower, not only is it significant for it because it is an iconic structure, but also many years ago I was up there on the parapet, and I just remember looking down across this entire city. You can see these timber buildings radiating in every direction, and there was all these houses with people in them. Their grandparents and great-grandparents had all lived in these houses. And because the story was about this orphan who's looking for his roots, I just thought if anything was going to trigger him in his search for his roots, it had to be here, on this parapet of this clock tower in Maryborough. And yes, that's why it's on the front cover, and that's why the actual the title is View from the Clock Tower, because that's what essence of the whole story.
Okay, yeah. Good. Tell us, the story of an orphan trying to find the truth is not a unique one, but the setting is. You know, you have chosen to express a life and times of regional country Queensland, and you've done it so well with knowledge and passion, and it shows a true love of tropical Queensland.
Yes, well, Queensland is definitely in my blood. In the earlier part there, you were saying about my travels overseas, and I certainly enjoyed that. But at the end of the day, you come back to your home, which is Queensland. So the story actually goes from Brisbane all the way up into North Queensland, and it's such a vibrant state. I don't think it's possible to write a story which hasn't got all these vibrant characters in it. And over my lifetime, I've met some amazing people who, one way or another, find themselves in this story, which is essentially Queensland.
I found the characters fascinating. Some I liked, as I was meant to, and others, well, just plain horrible. Both were, the good and the bad were vibrant, as you said, and so alive. Is that how they lived in your head?
Yes, they did. I think a character doesn't work if it's not in your head, if it's not living properly in your head. If it's not living there, it will end up being just a two-dimensional character. Every character, no matter how small, has got to be three-dimensional. And so they live in your head, yes, but I guess that at the end of the day, when you finish writing and you close your computer down, it's the good characters that stay in your head. You know, the bad characters, they stay in the computer where they belong.
As they should, absolutely. The book runs over 380 pages, and as I said, it was an absolute page-turner for me. As you were writing the story, did it flow as easily as it reads?
Yes, it did in many ways. It flowed easy, but at the same time you've got to be very, very disciplined, because there's just so many parts to a story that they've all got to slide together, sit together. They can't run off on their own little track or their own little journey. They've all got to be part of the whole. And I often think of Bryce Courtney in a lecture that he did, that I attended some years ago. He said that a story or a novel is like a stream. It starts as a small stream, then runs all the way to a big river and into the ocean. And he said you've got to be careful that parts of the story, that the stream doesn't run off on its own and ends up as a billabong. you're stuck there. You can't get back into the river. So he said you've got to make sure that you stay in the river. So yes, it's got to flow in that respect.
I love the interaction between the three main characters, Jack, Maria, and Jack's rival Sam.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have to work at getting the energy that flows out of these characters?
Yes, the characters they were easy enough because I could feel them strongly, but the big part of it was making sure that they stay in balance with each other. Mm. They had to stay in that balance all the way through the story. Once they get introduced, they had to remain as they were, relevant to each other and to all the other characters. So that was the hardest part, is making sure that stays, so that by the time you reach the end, where the conclusion of the whole story comes to, that they have been treading the ground exactly the same as all the other characters.
Yep, no, I can see that. As I understand it, crime thriller stories are basically about unravelling that crime. In your story, how difficult was it for you to leave clues throughout the story without revealing the ending?
Well, when you first do the first couple of drafts, the signposts, these clues are very strong because the author has got to be able to relate to them. But as you start doing more drafts, you start hiding these signposts, or not hiding them, but disguising them, so the reader doesn't suddenly hit and say, oh yeah, well that's an obvious point. Whereas after they've gone past it, they might say, oh, actually there was a signpost there somewhere that I missed, that character, I should have known he was going to do that. Mm. Or when it comes to the very end, you suddenly realise, well, there were signposts actually. I did know what was going to happen because there were signposts, but I didn't see them. I was in such a hurry, or I was distracted by something else. I didn't actually see that signpost, but it was there. Yeah. So it's not as though it's a total impossible ending that couldn't have happened, but all of a sudden you just parachute a character in at the end who commits the murder. It's not like that at all. It's got to develop.
And the reader has to have suspicions of how it's going to end, even if they're wrong.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
I know it's a crime thriller, but it seems to me that Jack was not only trying to solve the mystery of his parents' death, but also finding his roots.
Yes, that's. I think to put it into the box of being a crime story does it a disservice. It really is. It is a crime, definitely, because he's an orphan who's trying to find out what happened to his parents. He was reported that it was a murder-suicide, but instinctively he thinks that's impossible. It couldn't have happened. So yes, he is finding his roots, but at the same time he's trying to find out why, or what did actually happen to his parents. And once he finds it out, then obviously it is a murder that was committed, and he finds who it was that committed the murder. And at the same time, he finds out where it came from and how it all happened.
Wonderful. When this book was shortlisted for the British Crime Writers Dagger Awards, how thrilling was that for you?
Yes, it was a thrill, there's no doubt about that. When you're sort of placed in amongst 1,000 other authors all trying to make it in the big world of publishing, and you find that someone has selected your work and says, well, this is worth staying with, this has got potential. Yes, it does give you quite a thrill, and also it encourages you to go on, keep going. Yeah.
Keep going. So does that mean there's a second book?
Yeah, there definitely is a second book, Sally. Yes, it's called The O'Connor Protocol, and I've almost completed it. It's just about ready to go now. And the O'Connor Protocol means it's okay to sin for your brother. And what this story about is whether or not it is really a good thing to sin for your brother, and just how far you can take that protocol. But hopefully in the next few months, it'll be sitting on a publisher's desk somewhere.
That sounds wonderful. Once again, congratulations, Frank. I loved your book. I'm sure everybody else will, and I can't wait to read the second book.
Okay, Sally. Well, I hope you enjoyed as much as you've enjoyed the first. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you, Frank. Bye-bye.